brought to you by Brand South Africa.
Now, the World Economic Forum on Africa 2012 was held here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Now, Addis, of course, is the diplomatic capital of Africa, housing both the African Union as well as the United Nations Economic Commission on Africa. Now, the main theme for this year's meeting was shaping Africa's transformation. And indeed, we are seeing transformations taking place across all of Africa. 7 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world are located in Africa, and one of those countries is Ethiopia. Welcome to this special report on the World Economic Forum for Africa 2012. I'm Godfrey Mutizwa. This year's conference brought together over 700 private and public sector leaders from across the continent and around the rest of the world to share their views and insights on the opportunities and challenges associated with pushing Africa's growth story to the next level. At the 22nd Annual Meeting on Africa, organizers hope that the event will continue to provide a platform for open and constructive discussion.
We've been in Africa, as you said, for over 20 years. And what we try to do is create a space for real conversation. You know, we're a neutral platform, we're not taking specific sides. So what we actually saw here was an informality and an openness of discussion with government leaders, which is very rare. And with that also, I think, a real focus on, so what is going to be different in agriculture, in infrastructure, and some of these other issues. And in a number of areas, I think there is a real sense of possibility. But what we'll be doing next year is coming back to these same issues to actually trace whether there's been progress or not. You know, our mission is improving the state of the world. And what's been exciting for us with Dar es Salaam and now with Addis is helping actually bring the world to countries who have made tremendous progress, but whose progress is underknown and underappreciated. And we're seeing this in Ethiopia. The energy, the enthusiasm here, the potential here is so different from people's images from the famines of 20 or 30 years ago. And what's interesting actually is that we're not only bringing the world to Africa with this, we're actually bringing different parts of Africa in here. So one of the most exciting things is how many of your colleagues from South Africa or from Nigeria were coming here for the first time. So if we can actually help create those links, not only between the world and Africa, but within Africa, that for us is very exciting. So that's one thing where we see real value. The second thing is, out of this, if we can actually create the space for the real, serious, honest conversations to debottleneck some of these problems, that's the other exciting thing we get out of this.
Attendees from both the public and private sectors echoed this sentiment and acknowledged the value of face-to-face interaction with the African as well as international counterparts.
Well, it's an opportunity, apart from being tired, to listen to different voices, listen to different perspectives, meet colleagues from other governments and share ideas, and also to do some kind of quality check. Are the ideas we're thinking about resonating with ideas elsewhere? But importantly, look for opportunities to collaborate. This is a period in which we need to talk about transforming Africa and Africa's possibilities. There's a whole lot of reasons why that should be the case. The first very clear and objective one is that the world is changing, that the billion people on the African continent carry the hope for the future, whether it's food, whether it's mineral resources, whether it's demand, whether it's a stock of young people that we have. And all of those factors stand in Africa's favor.
Let me tell you, there's a lot of excitement, you know, and the excitement is based on the fact that the language about Africa is different. There are many investors here who are interested. We just, just to give you an example, we just had a very good meeting with Unilever, who is looking at investing.
I'm looking for a deal, Minister.
I can't mention the deal, but let me tell you, there was an extremely good conversation. They're very bullish, you know, to come to Nigeria. Sure. They've been in Nigeria, but to make new investments. Right. Walmart is on its way to Nigeria. We just had GE there, you know, and I could go on and on. Yeah. So the excitement in the place is the potential. Everybody's talking of what can happen. Sure. And when you have that hope and that bit of optimism, it makes you feel good.
With the ongoing financial turmoil in traditional investment markets such as the US and Europe, investment and expansion into Africa was at the top of the forum's agenda.
These are economies that are very, very high growth. Growth rates far in excess of ours and the rest of the developed world. It's our backyard, Africa. I think our banks are able to come in and set up some pretty inexpensive acquisitions. From an investment banking perspective, we cover the continent, we have the hub model. Where do we put our own money is the question, and we put our own money almost exclusively into African land.
Well, I think for us as a development institution working with the private sector, it's important that we are here so we can help companies that want to come in or the local companies to expand and go regional, because I think you need to integrate Africa more, and this is a great opportunity for investments now in Africa. Africa is rising, and we are here to help with our offices with 400 people and 35 operations in 35 countries now. Right now what we see is that Africa is growing, 5%. That's many, and out of the top 7 growing countries in the world, or top 10, 7 are actually in Africa. So there's a great business opportunities. This is kind of, I think, the decade of Africa that we're now seeing. So whether you're in agriculture, which is with the higher food prices creates some business opportunities, or in infrastructure, or just manufacturing with the labor pools here now, and logistics getting better.
What I'm hearing around discussing with some of the participants here at the World Economic Forum, there's a talk of an excitement around Africa, and I gather you share part of that excitement. Please tell us, where are you finding that excitement?
Absolutely. Well, as you know, our excitement about Africa isn't new, having been in the continent for over 100 years. But we think there's a new and different step change in Africa's performance that's likely to come over the next few years. Well, I think we've all seen that over the last 10 years, 6 out of the 10 fastest growing geographies in the world were African. And we believe, in common with the IMF, that till 2015 that will step up to 7 of the 10 fastest growing geographies in the world. So I think the sheer growth in the African continent is one of the most exciting dimensions.
Yeah.
What I think is new about that is that the sustainability of that growth is different. What you've seen in the past is a series of commodity cycles of boom and bust, and some interesting governance challenges. First of all, we intend to invest across our region. So
this is the whole of Africa.
That would be. Well, it'll be first of all the 14 markets in which we currently operate, and our priorities within those will be the big growth drivers at the moment. So places like Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Botswana. So there are a number of markets we would focus on, but actually even in some of the smaller markets like Sierra Leone, we see opportunities for new growth.
Sure.
So I think we see opportunities within our existing markets. We do also see opportunities in markets we're not currently in, so Mozambique, Senegal, among others, and potentially in the longer term Ethiopia as well. Right. So the challenge for us is making sure we balance investment in strong existing businesses with investment in new businesses.
Are you committing fresh funds into Africa in terms of your own capital as a bank to grow the business? How much are you committing?
We don't actually specify, because the reason for that is simply that depends. We will make that judgment on a year-on-year basis. Okay. But if you look at the past year, we've invested new capital into a number of our businesses. We're currently investing new capital into Zambia. We've invested new capital into Nigeria. So pretty much the same in Kenya. We've actually done a rights issue in Kenya. So there's I think a pretty consistent level of capital investment going into the key markets.
What's the target in terms of the number of countries that you want to be in Africa? You're in 14 now. Where are you going? How many are you looking at? In what sort of time frame?
I'm honest, we don't have a target, because the judgment we have to make is what is the right time and what is the right market. And so in some sense it is literally a trade-off between, do we move into Mozambique, do we increase the scale of the business in Nigeria? Sure. So I think it's fair to say that our focus will primarily be organic, so investing in businesses rather than just acquiring businesses. And I think it's more likely to be primarily on the markets we're in. But as I say, we do believe there are some exciting new markets that we could move into over the next 5 years.
As the host country of this year's forum, investment into Ethiopia also garnered substantial attention, more so with an economy growing at 10% annually.
Well, what we are doing here, actually, we are setting up a cement plant. One of the biggest. I think we are setting up a cement plant with about 3 million tons capacity, which is quite huge. Just the same size with the one that we are doing in South Africa. Right. And we hope it's going to be ready by 2013. And want to participate in other areas of the economy. We are looking around, but we want to do it one at a time. We don't want to really rush. In the next 3 years, we'll be growing our businesses here in sub-Saharan Africa. We'll be consolidating. And then from 2016 onwards, we'll look at other areas. But if there's an opportunity of a business that is ready and we need to negotiate and buy, we can always do that.
With African economies expanding, It's natural there was a focus on building and integrating Africa's fragmented capital markets.
People need to understand what integration means. Integration means having common standards, having common laws, sharing systems, and making sure that each of the individual markets are strong. Some of the reasons why people are talking about integration is that some of our markets are small.
Yes.
And when markets are small, they're not as liquid as they should be. I would say that from a capital markets point of view, the example to emulate is East Africa.
Right.
From an economic grouping point of view, SADC is a great example.
Sure.
ECOWAS is doing very, very well, both from a political union point of view, but also from an economic point of view. But focusing on the capital markets,
Yes.
we need to share systems. It will make the cost of transactions cheaper if we're sharing systems. If we have common standards, it will make sure that investors who invest in Southern Africa will already be familiar with the standards they will invest in East Africa or in West Africa. We have a regional grouping of the Africa Middle East of all regulators. And this forum seeks to learn lessons of what happens with each of the groupings. And we're learning lessons from each other. And that starting point of sharing information about your efforts, about what works, an area that is of that is an area that is important for Africa is new products. There are lessons to learn from each market, and so if we work together, if we share information, that potentially we could learn from each other.
I asked the question because we saw the JSE's effort to try and see if it one buy its way into Africa, that has failed, strike alliances, that seems to have failed. So you get the perception that African governments, or perhaps regulators, I don't know where to put the blame here, there is a perception they want to create their national champions and keep them. Therefore, integration may be doomed to fail.
Integration is not doomed to fail, and I would not agree that the efforts of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange have failed. They've learned and understood more about other African countries. In fact, I would say that they've supported some of what you see as dual listings. For example, the Nigerian company, Owando, is listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. A number of South African companies are doing significant business in Nigeria. MTN has its most profitable operation around the world in Nigeria. Mnet is in Nigeria, and I could name various others. So all of those things have supported the understanding and integration of the market. But your point around, should we have national champions? It is an interesting point. I do believe that capital markets are an integral part of transforming an economy or transforming society. And therefore, the integration strategy must take account of the fact that you must have markets that are sufficiently supportive of the economic transformation agenda of individual countries. So it's a two-pronged strategy.
We need to take a short commercial break. When we return, we'll bring you more views and insights on this year's World Economic Forum on Africa held here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.